What's going on, guys? It is day 4. Happy Friday. So just quick, here's the deal. So yesterday on IXL, you kind of got a benchmark grade on figuring out if something was linear, exponential, or quadratic. So we're not going to worry about that today, but since we did 8.5, we did finish the chapter. So what we're going to do today is just take a 4-question only quiz on a couple of things from before. So like 8.4 and 8.4 extension is what your quiz is going to be on. All right, it's going to be on big ideas. So here's the deal. I'm including my webcam because 2 of the examples that I want to go through are on my screen here that we'll go through in a minute. And then 2 of them I don't really have on here. So I'm going to go through those on the whiteboard here. Okay. But again, it's a 4-question quiz. I'm going to go through examples right now of exactly the same type of questions that you will see on the quiz on big ideas. All right, so let's get into that, and then I'll talk more about kind of how you need to answer these questions on big ideas in order to get them right. Okay, because it's very, very specific. So let's get started with this first example right here. Your first question is going to legitimately have these instructions. So where it's asking us to find the axis of symmetry and the vertex of the graph of the function. So real quick, I want to review that. All right. So I'm going to highlight this thing right here, this formula that we talked about of negative b over 2a, which we basically are using to find the x value for the vertex, while simultaneously we're finding the axis of symmetry as well. All right. So negative b over 2a, let's remember that our negative 16 here is our b value, and our negative 8 is our a value. All right, so if we look right next to our formula, we plug those 2 things in. Now, why does that 16 become positive? Because there was already a negative in the formula. The negative here, those cancel out. All right, so I just put positive 16 up top. This is over 2 times the a value, which is negative 8. So I end up getting 16 over negative 16, which I simplified to negative 1. Okay, now from there, how do I find what y is? How do I find my y value for the vertex? I'm taking negative 1, and right here, all of this work that's shown right here is basically me plugging back in negative 1 into this original function, all right, for x. All right, so if I go through my thinking here, I would look at, obviously, negative 1 squared first is positive 1, times my negative 8 would be negative 8 down here, okay? Kind of talked about this in class, that when I multiply these numbers, it always ends up being double the first number with an opposite sign, okay? And then I'm subtracting my 1. So when I do all of this math here, I end up with 7 for my y value, okay? So here are the answers that need to be put in big ideas, all right? Like I said, they are very specific. So for axis of symmetry, we're going to say x is equal to negative 1. And then for vertex, negative 1, 7, okay? So this question, guys, will be worth 2 points. All right. I'm going to mark this as a point and then this as a point. All right. Okay. Let's move on to the next question. Our next question is going to say this. All right. So our next question on the quiz will have these same exact instructions. All right. So it's going to ask us to tell whether, let's get this other stuff out of the way. Tell whether the function has a minimum or maximum value and then find that value. All right. So we talked about this in class. This first number, this first term's sign, tells us which way the graph opens. Okay. Since it's negative in this case, if I were finding my vertex, I'd be finding the highest or maximum point on the graph, right? If this number was positive 5, for example, that would tell me that I'm finding the lowest point on my graph when I find my vertex, because it would be opening up. All right. But let's just use this as an example of what we're doing. We're essentially, guys, the only thing that's really different is we're saying, is it a maximum value or is it a minimum value? And then we're going through those same exact steps. Because if we look here, Here's my formula again, negative b over 2a. I told you guys in class, we always use this formula to start with anything in 10.4, all right? Or 8.4, sorry, 8.4. So negative b over 2a we're going to use, all right? We're pulling these values. Here's 10, making it negative 10 because of the negative in the formula. Negative 5 down here, so 2 times negative 5, which simplifies to negative 10 over negative 10, which divides to equal 1, all right? Now, remember that this value, our answer, is really the y value for the vertex, all right? So here's the deal. Again, in big ideas, they want just the y value for the vertex, all right? If you type in the vertex, it'll be okay because I can go back in and look and see that you wrote that down and wrote in the vertex, and I can mark it right still. But for big ideas to notice that it's correct, you're only going to have to put the y value for the vertex, all right? So remember how we find that. We take 1, which was the x value, right, that we found. We plug it back in. So here's the math for that. So again, 1 squared is 1 times negative 5 gives me negative 5. It's basically plus 10, then plus 7, which would give me 12. All right, so remember, we're going to say that it's either minimum or maximum, and then we're just going to put the y value for the vertex for our answer, okay? So that's the second problem you're going to do. That's worth 2 points, by the way. All right. Now, like I said before, the other two questions, I don't really have examples for that are done on my screen here. So back here, real quick, number 3 on your quiz is basically going to give you something like this. Okay. It's going to say which statement is true in regards to the graph of something like y equals x plus 5 squared with the x plus 5 in parentheses. And you're essentially going to be comparing it to the graph of y equals x squared. All right. So let's remember, we actually kind of just did this in that first day, that Desmos activity. If we have something in parentheses, all right, like plus 5, we would say that it's a translation 5 units to the left. Okay. It kind of goes opposite of what we would think. Plus 5, it really moves it to the left 5 units. Okay. If it were like x minus 4 squared, but the x minus 4 in parentheses, we would say it would be a translation 4 units to the right. All right, so number 3 on your quiz is as simple as that. You're just comparing a graph of something that's in with the x plus 5 in parentheses, for example. You're going to be comparing that to the graph of y equals x squared. All right, so it's going to be some type of horizontal translation. All right. All right, and finally, we're going to run through this right here, number 7. All right. So we're going to run through number 7 here. This is going to be like number 4 on your quiz. All right. So let's talk about this. We haven't talked about this in a while. If I was graphing y equals x minus 2 squared plus 4. Okay. This question on your quiz, guys, is going to be worth 5 points. All right. Because you got to graph this thing. You have to plot specific points that they want you to plot. All right. The first thing they ask you to plot is the vertex. Okay. So I don't know if we remember this, but get you closer here. To find the vertex, what we do is, since we have something that's in parentheses, we're going to find what number can I plug in for x that would make this expression equal 0. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a table. I'm going to make a table, and I'm going to plug in that number that makes this equal 0 first. All right? Then I'm going to do the math. Okay? So 2 minus 2 gives me 0. 0 squared is 0 plus 4. So this right here, this is my vertex. Okay, so this would be your answer to part 1 of this question that you're going to see on your quiz. All right, plot your vertex. Boom, here it is. Okay, now I'm going to actually show you the question because it's a little confusing. So on our screen here it is. There's your equation, but let's not worry about that. I just want to point out what your questions are. The next part of this is ask you to graph the axis of symmetry using 2 points other than the vertex. You guys are going to use this line tool right here to do that. So you're essentially just graphing a vertical line that goes through here, right? That goes through 2 on the x-axis. That's your answer for part B. Now part C is where it gets a little confusing. Part C says, let's read this. I'm right here. Part C says, plot the point on the graph whose x-coordinate is less than that of the vertex. Guys, they mean to take a number that's 1 less than this, which would be, in my case, 1, and they want us to plug that in and find what comes out for y. So let's do that. So 1 minus 2 is -1. -1 squared is +1. Plus 4 gives me 5. Okay? So the point we would plot for part C is this one right here. Okay? Then part D, it says something similar. It says, plot the point on the graph whose x-coordinate is 2 less than that of the vertex. They just mean take a number that's 2 less than this x value, which would be 0, and plug that in. So when I do that, 0 minus 2, -2. -2 squared is 4, and then 4 plus 4 gives me 8. All right? So our answer for part D would be right here. We want to plot this ordered pair. And now part E says, finally, to reflect, so I'm here on my screen here, reflect the plotted points in the axis of symmetry to plot 2 more points on the graph. Guys, they just mean that we would mirror these 2 points that we just made, which would essentially be these points here, 3, 5, and 4, 8. Okay, because these are the points that would mirror these 2 points that we just made. All right, so that's what you're doing. This question right here is worth 5 points because there's 5 parts to it. All right, but just a reminder, if you need to, go back and rewind this. You can use this during your quiz to help you, this video. Okay, but again, your quiz is going to be in big ideas. All right, so in big ideas, it's going to look like this. It's right here. It's the 8.4 through 8.4 extension quiz. Okay, it's 10 points. It's going to be worth 10 points. And you guys only have to do questions 1 through 10. All right, I think there's 10 questions in here, but and I can't pick and choose questions for quizzes in here for some reason. So again, you just have to do 1 through 4. All right, and I will grade it. I'll grade it accordingly. So it'll be out of 10 points because there are 10 answers that you need to give. Okay. Please, if you have any questions, remember I'm going to make a discussion post every day. So ask your questions in there or just email me. Okay. All right. I hope you guys have a great spring break, and I'll talk to you after.